And the one fact that people don't know, it's never been published in the media, and I won't give names, but we know of a couple of individuals actually took their life because their bank accounts were frozen.
We are joined by Eddie Cornell, a Canadian veteran who had his bank account frozen for participating in the Freedom Convoy, successfully sued the federal government, resulting in a judge finding the invocation of the Emergencies Act to be illegal and unconstitutional. Eddie, sir, thank you very much for joining us tonight.
Thanks.
How's
It's
it going,
great
Eddie?
to be here.
Great to see you.
Nice to see you.
So before I throw the ball to you, I figured I'd do a tiny bit of a intro as to what happened to you. You challenge me anytime you want, because clearly you know better than I do. I'm just did some research and this is what I found. You were part of a multi-applicant challenge against the federal government. You were one of the 4 individuals that actually went after the government. I know Vincent Gercy. I met him at an NCI event. He was part of that. He was part of that suit too. You guys argued that the invocation of the Emergencies Act was both unreasonable and unconstitutional. And on January 23rd, 2024, Justice Richard Mosley agreed with you guys. On January 16, 2026, the Federal Court of Appeal upheld your judgment. But on March 17th, literally 2 days ago, the federal government officially filed for leave to appeal to the Supreme Court of Canada. Does that sound right to you?
It does. They just can't take no for an answer. That's it's pretty incredible
So can
that
you
they would go this far.
Can you explain what that means to you, knowing that obviously you thought this was probably a done deal because it's been dragging for a couple of... Oh, you know what? I'll stop there. What does that mean to you that the government is filing for leave to appeal?
What really got my attention was over the past couple of months, anytime that they referred to the, the convoy or the protest in Ottawa, was the government doubling down and saying that it was an occupation and that it was illegal. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, yeah, they're going to do it. I wasn't sure. And then, the very last day, the last minute, they went ahead and did it. So it really wasn't a surprise. I'm disappointed, but it's really not a surprise because this government's been so spiteful and so vindictive for anyone involved in the trucker convoy. They literally want to crush you, and they will stop at nothing.
It's hard not to notice the difference between, a lot of the light sentences from people that we're seeing getting all kinds of, committing all kinds of violent crimes, and then the sentences that they're seeking for, say, Tamara Litch and I forget the other gentleman's name.
Chris Barber.
Yeah. Those be like, what I think they were asking, 7 or 8 years, it's insane. Eddie, so I'm not as up on this story as Nico is. I most of what I know about it is only from doing this show over the last year.
He's a liberal, Eddie, by the way, just so you know. Like I told you.
As long as you're a classical liberal, that's okay.
That's how I define myself.
Okay.
Yes, classical liberal, common sense liberal. There's a few of us left out there.
Yeah.
So maybe if you could just tell us a little bit about your experience, what happened. I know the broad strokes, but you could fill it in maybe with some details.
Do you want to go back to the trucker convoy itself?
If you don't mind, just your experience of it.
Yeah. During the trucker convoy, as you know, it ended badly. But during that last week, they froze our bank accounts, and I knew something was up. And
was it everyone, or was it?
No, I think it was like 256 of us that had our accounts frozen.
How did they identify you guys?
Well, that's the question. They've never really said.
Okay.
Maybe because of a social media post, or they saw a license number. I don't know, but they picked people right across the country. There was people in British Columbia, that donated $5 that they froze their account. So I don't really know what the methodology was. I think they were just possibly in some cases picking people at random, and maybe people like me that were visible in Ottawa, trying to put me in a weak position. And, you know, it was pretty devastating to have all your accounts frozen. In fact, they wanted to freeze all of, you know, the insurance on our home and our vehicles. Luckily, that didn't happen. But,
Wow.
you know, when it ended, I really had no money to get home for, I lived in New Brunswick at the time, so it's 1,700 kilometers.
Mhm.
And, you know, I didn't have money for gas. So luckily, some people gave me some cash. I had enough gas to get home. But the problem was going through Quebec, you know, you'd stop to fill up and you go to pay, and they'd be like, "Oh no, we don't take cash." Right? It's like, yeah, but I need gas. So
Jeez.
you know, you fill up, right? Luckily, they had where you could just pump and then go pay. And I said, either you take the cash, that's up to you. I'm leaving. And
Yeah.
it was quite an ordeal getting home. I'll tell you that. But it was devastating to find out that, you know, there was no means for appeal. You didn't know who to contact to, you know, get your money released. We had no idea how long it would be locked down for.
How
Yeah,
long were you locked out of your accounts?
it worked out to be just under a week for me. Others were longer, but we just didn't know.
That's
Yeah.
still a long time. You got to
Well,
eat,
even,
right?
you know, in the Mosley decision, in the beginning, when our legal team was stating what had happened to all of us with our bank accounts frozen, he goes, "Yeah, but it was only for a week." And the judge, you know, kind of gave that look of like it was no big deal. So our attorneys, um, they said, "Well, let me paint the picture for you. It's minus 30, middle of winter. People
Yeah.
have to travel 1,700 kilometers to get home. They have no means for shelter, no means for food, and they have no means for gas. So it's a problem." And I watched Justice Mosley's face right then and there, and you could see him kind of, I never really
Clue
looked at
in.
it that way.
Yeah.
But
And the
that's not
one
even
thing
the
that I
point.
knew we'd
But that,
win is
yeah,
that
go ahead.
he said, um, in his early life, he was a trucker himself. So I thought that was pretty good. I thought, ooh, that might be him trying to tell us something. I don't know, but
Nice.
luckily he did.
You know, the problem with this whole thing is that the fact that it's a week, the fact that it would have been 6 hours is irrelevant. Our government showed that they will crush dissent by freezing people's bank account. That means that they have backdoor deals with banks. So entities that are supposed to be separate from the government are ruled by the government, and they can do that without letting you know. I guarantee, I'm ready to bet that they didn't give you a phone call to say, "Hey, Eddie, by the way, we didn't like the fact that you were at the protest, so we're freezing your account until you go complain to the Supreme Court." I'm sure that they didn't let you know. They didn't send you a text prior. That's the
No,
problem. Even if they did that for 6 hours, I don't care. The point in the
it's
matter is
pretty
that people need to
devastating.
realize it's tyrannical. This
Yeah.
is what
Yeah.
tyrannical governments do. What did you do? Because I was at the Freedom Convoy. I was there. I brought a couple of my friends. I brought my now wife just to say, guys, you guys need to go see this because it's not going to be, you're going to be able to see what they say on the news and what actually happened because you would have been there. So let's go so that you guys can experience what it actually is. I've been a
That's
long
right.
time conspiracy theorist, so I know that what they tell you and what happens are two different things.
That's so
And
true.
I I couldn't have been more right. But it blows my mind that even in court, Mosley's just it's just a week. Hey boy, do you understand that that's not a power a government is supposed to have? I didn't vote for this. Did you? Did you vote the power to the government to say that they can freeze our
Not
bank
that I
accounts
know
because
of.
they? And this is the problem. And you're so nice about it. I can't believe that you're still smiling about it. You're a lot better than I am. I would have lost my shit.
Well, you know, it's just, I, I believe in, you know, doing what's right. That's what I've always tried to do in my life. Do what's right. Follow your heart, follow your gut. And in the end, things will work out. And that's how I kind of roll. And
Mhm.
the, you know, the fact that they froze my bank accounts, yeah, that was devastating. But I think more so than that, I mean, that's one thing, you know, you got your money frozen, but what it did to me is permanently um, violate the trust I have in authority.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I don't trust police. I don't trust government. I don't trust other than people close to me. That circle of trust is small.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's that's the kind of thing. I think kind of the younger generation just almost instinctively has that mistrust. But you're retired, so I don't know. You could be, you don't look a day over 35.
Oh yeah. I thought you were going to say, "Don't I look good for 80?" Thanks, I appreciate that.
60 probably are, close.
Yeah, he's totally frozen. I don't know for you, but he's totally frozen on my screen.
I'm frozen.
So Rob, no, not you. I can hear you. We're having a conversation right now, but Rob is completely frozen.
Oh,
You got
okay.
me?
Now you're back, but you
Now you
froze
got
at
me.
about, you don't look a day over 30. So
Yeah.
you pretty much went
I
to
was
like
saying,
20 seconds.
I was saying you don't look a day over 35, but let's just say you're probably retired or of boomer age, I guess we'll say.
Yeah,
And
that's a swear word in my world.
yeah, sure.
You know,
Sure.
I like to think of myself, like, yeah, I am a boomer, but I'm a unicorn in boomers because I'm not part of that generation. I don't think like that.
I was going to say, because they're kind of the last group that really has trust in the government still. Obviously you're sort of a different type of thinker than sort of the rest of that group. But yeah, it really is, it is these things that destroy trust in the government. And I know what you mean. I would also like to trust the government. I do have I'm not so cynical that I've lost all trust and authority in government, but I have in this one, and in this government, and this, the way authority is wielded today. And it just seems so short-sighted to me, because I don't see how they can't see the harm they're doing to themselves. And by they, I mean, the government, when they do things like this. So what's next for you guys? This isn't over for you, eh?
No, well, we're waiting to see if the Supreme Court will actually grant leave for this appeal that they've submitted. It's still, up in the air whether that'll happen or not. There's a lot of difficulties with the Supreme Court doing that. As you know, you've probably seen some of the articles in the past few days since it came out about Justice Wagner, the Chief Justice, how he commented about the trucker convoy back in 2022. Generally, you would think a Supreme Court, especially, the Chief Justice, would stay out of the political arena in public, but he didn't. So he's basically given his opinion about the trucker convoy. So my thought is, how can we get fair representation in front of the Supreme Court when he's clearly violated that neutrality?
Yeah. 100%.
There's so much wrong with this case. There's nothing right about this case, and the fact that it's still going on just proves that they messed up. They're doubling down on it. They just don't want people to know how bad they messed up. Because as you guys have been talking about, there are some people out there that still have trust in the government. I don't. I haven't had trust in the government for 25 years, 30 years.
Right.
And there's always been kind of an understanding that maybe some people are okay. But the fact that nobody is standing up for you is what bothers me. Because if you look at the political spectrum right now, it don't matter where you look. People are saying are not touching that one with a 10-foot pole. Like I just posted before we came on the show to say, while everybody's thinking about Pierre Poilievre and how he's on the Joe Rogan show, people are missing that our government is trying to appeal the decision when they were found to use the Emergencies Act illegally and unconstitutionally, and also that the CCFR, as the Supreme Court, has agreed to hear their case on the 2,500 firearm models and types that they banned overnight through order of council. So another thing that should be illegal. This is not what it was meant for. You're not supposed to be able to write blank comments like this and just say, no debate, no parliament, no nothing. Yet, who's talking about it? Nobody. Everybody's concerned about Pierre Poilievre being on Joe Rogan a year and a half too late. This is what it does not matter. Does that frustrate you when you look at both,
Extremely.
like all the sides, and you're like, what's happening here?
People don't care. They just don't care. It's like, oh, well, it doesn't affect me. What time's American Idol on? That's
Yeah,
that's
exactly,
basically
right?
the attitude. Oh, that sucks to be that guy. They're just afraid to stick their head up. I think probably 85% of our population is captured in their mindset, and they're given propaganda every day through the legacy media, and they
Yep.
believe it. And
Yep.
maybe that's something that is really not their fault. It's just that's where they get their information, so they're led to believe it. But anyone that tries to show them another view to whatever point it may be, they're not willing to entertain that idea or look at it because it's all fake. It's you're just a conspiracy theorist. You're a I've been called. I got called by the attorney general. I got called a Nazi and a white supremacist. So
Where did
like,
that
what do
come
they
from?
base that on?
Yeah.
Well, you're white, so obviously you're racist.
Yeah.
Is that not how it works now?
Yeah, exactly.
If you're white and not a liberal, not
Yeah.
even a liberal, but like a far leftist, if you're not a woke idiot, then yeah, you must be a
crazy.
white supremacist. And it's crazy that they don't just accept the loss, just take the L and move on. Like, I can't believe they're
I think this is
they're
bad for
appealing this.
Carney. I really do. He had a chance to separate himself from Justin Trudeau.
Sure, he
Now, a
did,
lot of
yeah.
the same players are still involved in the government, but a lot of the main tyrants that were involved with the Emergency Act and so on, they got fired upwards, I guess. They all got promotions into, to
Yeah.
become
Christian
ambassadors,
Freeland.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
this was his
exactly.
chance to separate himself from Justin Trudeau. Now, they didn't acknowledge the court cases whatsoever, but now by doing this, it shows that he's the flip side of Justin Trudeau and that he was the man behind the curtain. And
But that's a fact.
And
He's
that's
been his
that is
economic.
true.
He's been his economic advisor since at least 2021, and that's reported in mainstream media. That's not a conspiracy newspaper hiding somewhere. No, that was CBC talking about the fact that Justin Trudeau's getting advice from an international banker, quite the economist. So that he was part of this. That he was involved in that whole thing. And I've been saying that to people from the get-go. If you read Values by Mark Carney, you realize that he's not an idiot. That guy's actually extremely intelligent. He is evil, dangerous when you read his book, but you understand everything that he's doing. And considering what you've been through, considering that it looks like it's not done, they're just doubling down. Do you think it's all connected to the Bill C8, to the Bill C2, C8, C9, C12, C16, C22, and a new Bill C63? Because I cannot stop thinking about, imagine now that Bill C9 is going to become a reality. It's going to be in committee probably next week, going to be voted on in one day. It's going to become law very soon. Can you imagine if Bill C9 would have been in place when the Freedom Convoy happened? They could have arrested thousands of people on the spot for a hate speech.
they could have.
Are you following the bills, Eddie?
Oh, yeah, very
okay.
closely.
So, gotcha.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And the thing is, he's about to get a majority government through backhanded
He got
deals.
it.
Yeah.
Yeah, or
He actually got it.
if he has to, he'll go to an election. But make no mistake, they're going for all of it. So think about it. All of these bills, when in history have the guys that came for your guns, for your free speech and everything else ever been the good guys?
Yeah.
Never.
So they will target their political enemies, and if they pass C22, where they can just inject into all of your personal devices and go to your internet providers and your cell providers and so on, and just get all of your records and all your information, who's to say that they wouldn't insert something into your device and then say, hey, this guy's done this, or this, but you didn't even know it was there, but they planted it in.
Sure.
People don't read their bills. That was part of Bill C2. That now they're pushing. They have expanded Bill C2 into Bill C12.
Yep.
It's a smaller version of Bill C2, but then Bill C22 has that component that was part of Bill C2, where they
Correct.
are allowed to install spyware. It's basically called spyware on whatever equipment that you own, listen, record you, and keep the information for themselves, and they don't say for what reason.
You know, I get friends, you know, that maybe aren't as aware of what's going on. Thank God they're still my friends. You know, they don't malign me, but you know, oh, Eddie, come on, that's never going to happen. You're just, you know, it's a conspiracy. You know, you're just full of conspiracy theories. But they don't. When you try to show them, they don't want to hear it. They just
they don't want to see it.
No. And
but how do they explain that they froze your bank account? This is not a conspiracy theory. That happened to you.
Well, what I get is, well, you must have done something. You know, well, what did I do? Well, you were at the trucker convoy. Yeah, but it was legal. I didn't break the law. I wasn't charged with a crime.
It's a protest.
I wasn't arrested.
Even if you didn't agree with what the protest was about. I don't agree with the pro-Palestine protest, but I don't think they should be arrested or have their bank accounts frozen.
You're right. Exactly. You know, we had another lawsuit going on, and one of the people who had their bank accounts frozen was from British Columbia, and her and her son had their accounts frozen, and they disagreed totally with the trucker convoy. They wanted nothing to do with it, but they had their bank accounts frozen.
Wow.
It was just crazy.
That
and
is
the one
crazy.
fact that people don't know, and it's never been published in the media, and I won't give names, but we know of a couple of individuals that had their bank accounts frozen, actually took their life because their bank accounts were frozen.
Wow.
Imagine.
Wow.
But I can understand. I can understand if you know that's one thing that a lot of Canadians don't understand is most people are about $2,000 or $3,000 away from declaring bankruptcy. If they lose their job, they're screwed. Most people live paycheck to paycheck. This is not we don't live in the reality of the 80s, the 90s, the 70s where most people had money saved. This is not the reality anymore. 25% of Canadians live in a world where they're food insecure. 1 out of 4 Canadian is food insecure, has skipped meals in order to make sure they could pay for their mortgage. This is the situation in which we live. That means they don't have anything in the bank account sitting there just in case something happens. They don't have thousands of dollars sitting under their mattress in case the government chooses to freeze your accounts. That's a reality. Yeah. So not having money, not being able to pay, what happens if you have young children? Like
there's all kinds of reasons. Who's to say you don't have a bill coming out that's due 2 days from now? You know, that's super important bill, a mortgage.
Everybody was locked down. They couldn't go to work for almost 2 years at the time. You know, they were probably the person that took their life, a few actually, you know, were probably already in financial distress because of that. Maybe they didn't have the type of job they could work from home. They didn't have unemployment insurance. Everything had run out, and they donate $50 to the trucker convoy, and then you get your bank accounts frozen. The trucker convoy was like a last bastion of hope for thousands of people across the country because things were getting so dark and draconian. It didn't seem to be opening up. And that was probably just enough to push them over the edge, you know?
Crazy.
And you saw right across the country, people lining the roads and the bridges, waving flags, and, you know, but think about it. A week after the trucker convoy, all the mandates came down.
Yeah.
And it happened around the world. That trucker convoy, now it wasn't me. I was just in the background supporting, working with the team in the background, doing logistics and helping out. The truckers were the guys that got it done. But I think they saved thousands of lives around the world by doing that. And it opened our country and many other countries around the world. It showed the rest of the world that if you protest peacefully, right, that's how you get it done. And we exposed the government for the tyrants that they were. They came in with all the king's horses and all the king's men and came in heavy-handed and beat people. We had veterans that were arrested. I don't know if you know the story of Chris Deering. Maybe I'm getting a little carried away here. He stood in line as veterans. Everybody was standing in between the protesters and the police, and to be a voice of reason, you know, to say this doesn't have to go this way. And Chris, who's a decorated Afghanistan vet, he was the lone survivor in his team. 5 were killed. He was blown up by a roadside bomb. He just said to the police in front, He said, listen, if you want to arrest me, I'll go peacefully. All I ask is you don't hurt me. I'm a severely wounded veteran. He was the first guy they pulled out. 3 big goons grabbed him, were punching him in the head, kneeing him in the gut, pounding him in his kidneys, and kicking him like hell. And then they took guys in their trucks and drove them around recklessly, bouncing around in the back of the paddy wagon in -20, and then dropped everybody off in a field in the middle of nowhere in -20. That's how
crazy.
That's how people got treated. And people don't hear about that in the rest of Canada. These are guys that were standing there with their Afghanistan medals and all the medals. And this is how they got treated, for standing up as a dissenting voice, offering no violence or resistance. They get treated like they were thugs. It's disgusting. I'm
That's
sorry to get
unbelievable.
carried away on that, but
No.
It's-
I didn't know that story. That is
it's
disgusting.
very, very emotional for a lot of our guys. And because of that, all of what took place, that's how Veterans for Freedom was started. Because all the veterans that came to Ottawa, most of them were there because of, giving a vaccine that, like Malathquin, that, had side effects. And they were there because of that. And they were there to be the voice of, we need to open up. This is wrong. And so we came together and formed this organization. We got 3,500 members across the country. Jeff Evely is one of them. And we're 4 years in. But I guess it's kind of like, 2 steps forward, 1 step back. That just seems to be the way things are going. They want to crush the trucker convoy and everyone and everything that had anything to do with it. And so you'll never do it again. Never. And they're going to give law enforcement and the military and everybody else the tools they need to make people too afraid to speak up.
Eddie, I'm going to have to book you again so that we can go for more than half an hour, because we
Okay.
do have another guest joining us. I'm pretty sure she's in the back room right now. Yes, she is. Oh, she's shaking her head. Awesome. That means she hears us. So, but I definitely want to have you back on. So I'll stay in touch, and you definitely need to let us know what's happening with your court case with the Supreme Court. If something happens with the appeal, I'm definitely interested in having you back on. But Eddie, thank you very much for what you're
very much,
doing.
gentlemen. It was a pleasure.
I appreciate you.
Appreciate it.
Appreciate your time, sir.
Thank you. Have
Take
a great
care.
night.
Take care.
Have a good night, Eddie.